Right, so I believe we're live. I'm sure everybody can hear me. I believe we are live on Zoom as well as Facebook and YouTube as well. So this session is going to be recorded. The session is going to be recorded. Just hold on a moment and we're pushing ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because somebody was asking me for the recording afterwards. I said I was going to ask. So if we can all have a copy afterwards, please.
Certainly.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got quite a few people in the waiting room who are just coming in. So we just give a little time to come in so we can kick off.
Hey, are you a Cross Riverian or a lover of Cross River State? Have you wondered how you can get involved in creating the Cross River State of your dreams? You are invited to join the Cross River Movement, a non-partisan, not-for-profit movement of Cross Riverians and lovers of Cross River State worldwide. Let's all come together to create the Cross River State of our dreams. Visit www.crossrivermove.com to sign up. Together we can.
All right, so let me use this opportunity to wish everyone a very happy 2022 and to welcome you to the TCRM conversation with Iso Bassey. I am Iso Bassey, if you haven't met me before. And today we're going to be talking about the prospects and the potentials of agriculture in Cross River State. So we've got 4 panelists here on this conversation, and we're going to have an opportunity to have a frank conversation with them and to understand from their perspectives how we can harness the prospects and the opportunities within the agri sector in Cross River State to help grow the state's economy and create jobs for young people and just forge a brighter future for Cross River State. So I'm going to be introducing the panelists, and this is not in any particular order. We've got Professor J.K. Ebigwaye. He's a professor of plant science and biotechnology. He's an accredited environmental consultant and is currently spearheading an Africa Development Bank agro project for Anambra, Benue, Ebonyi, and Cross River State. So Prof, I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to hear about that. The next panelist is Ms. Glory Bassey. Glory holds a BSc degree in agriculture and agricultural economics. She's the CEO of Glow Farms Enterprises, which is an agro-based company that helps to set up and manage, and provide consultancy services to farmers and investors. Her vision is to make agriculture a viable profession. That's wonderful. Thirdly, we have Mr. Achilles, he will tell us Akuku, and he's the special advisor to the governor of Cross River State on agricultural projects. And finally, the last but certainly not the least, we have Mr. Muyi Ladoja, who is an agricultural development expert. He's the CEO of Real Plantation Limited, and he has been involved in the development of agriculture in Cross River State from the year 2000 till date. Mui's company specializes in oil palm, and he's also currently the Vice President for Agriculture in the Calabar Chamber of Commerce. So join me in welcoming these four panelists to the conversation this afternoon. Guys, you're all welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not sure the special advisor to the governor is on the call yet. I understand he was on a journey and was hoping to, arrive Calabar in time to participate. But we'll push ahead, and hopefully we'll have him on the conversation at some point. Okay, so so just to give a bit of a background, and this was sent, in the adverts for this event. So we know that Cross River State generates, I think, about, or should I say, earns revenue of about 59 billion naira a year, and is indebted to the tune of, I think, to over 230 billion naira. Now, the question that I've always asked myself, we've got a huge land mass, we've got very fertile soil. Cross River State is known for, oil palm, cocoa, rubber, etc. How can we use the asset that we have, which is our fertile land and competitive advantage in agriculture, to place our state on a sound economic footing? I think I will throw that question to Professor Ebigwaye. What's the economics behind this? How can we truly make agriculture work for the states? How can we take it from subsistence to where it actually becomes a very strong revenue earner for Cross River State and its people?
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, Prof, good afternoon.
I welcome you all to this new year, and I wish all of us a fruitful deliberation in Jesus' name. When we talk about the agricultural potentials of Cross River State, yes, we have a good arable land, because if you look at Cross River State, we have 7 ecological regions in the country. Incidentally, all the ecological regions are present in Cross River State. We have the mangrove, we have the savanna, we have the Guinea savanna, we have the mountain, we have the plateau. So every ecosystem that is present in Nigeria is present in Cross River State. So that means to say a crop that is grown in Kebbi, for instance, can be grown in Cross River. A crop that is grown in Delta can be grown in Cross River. A crop that is grown in Maiduguri, in Kwara, can be grown here. So that means to say, first of all, as a state, we need to delineate Cross River State into agricultural zones. What I mean is, you look at, okay, between here and here, between the Akampa and Bakassi area, what are the land here? What kind of crop can be grown here? What kind of livestock can this area sustain? When we do that all through the state, that is delineation. We delineate the states into agrozones. Then when you now delineate it into agrozones, then the next thing you're going to do is not just sufficient for you to have the land mass. It's not just sufficient for you to have arable land, cultivatable lands, but you have to talk about the people. Are they really willing to go into the next gear of agriculture? Because they are all doing subsistence farming and they are contented with it. And I'll tell you, the real money is not actually in the production. Real money is in the processing. And because we are locked up with these traditional ways of cultivation, you find that, and this land tenure system, you say, oh, you just cultivate this area, it's okay for me. This other area does not belong to me. And you don't want to venture to say, okay, young man, please, Oga, can you give me your land so that I will add it to mine so that I could begin to do something like a large scale? It's a problem. So you also talk about the mindset of the people. Are we really into agriculture? It's another question. Go to the university. Many persons do not want to study agric. Even those that are being forced in one way or the other by way of policy to study agric, most often time they graduate and they start looking for work in the bank. They start looking for work in civil service. Do they really want to go to land? To cultivate the land is an issue that we must also have to tackle. So enlightenment, sensitization is also needed. Then those that are equally cultivated, I'm thinking of the examine now. You look at it, do they really carry out soil tests? Do they do analysis before they just cultivate? Rather, they just go and say, okay, they just start cultivating this place, blah, 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 blah. They don't know whether that place is optimally suited for the production of the crop they are engaged in. So at the end of the day, you find that we toil a lot with little or no success in terms of contributing to the GDP of the states. Yes, the state is indebted, but we have arable lands. It's because of the mentality of the people, and also has to do with the policy drive of the government. Has the government done enough to convince the people? Is there marketing board after producing whatever you are producing? Who are the off-takers? It's equally an issue. Where are the roads, the road infrastructure to move the produced goods from the farms to where they can be consumed? It's an issue. So you could see that it's a value chain, and not until we begin to address the value chains, the road infrastructure, we talk about the marketing, we talk about the off-takers. If all these things are in sync before you begin to see the value, if it is disjointed as we have it today, we'll continue to have large arable lands, we'll continue to have even goods that are produced but are decomposing before they get to the target market. So before we can make any sustainable progress, there must be a concerted effort, a policy that is not just fragmented, but a holistic one to move us from ground zero to the place we want to be. Thank you.
Iso, we can't hear you.
Oh, I apologize. So I was thanking Prof for his contribution, and saying that while he was speaking, Mr. Achilles Akuku, I believe, came online. We introduced him earlier. So he's the special advisor, I believe, to the governor of Cross River State on agricultural projects. So Mr. Achilles, it's nice to have you on. It would be good to hear from you what the states, what projects are going on in the state. So what's the government's initiatives right now in the area of agriculture? And then I think we can take the conversation on from there.
So good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just like Mr. Iso Bassey introduced, my name is Iso Bassey, Special Advisor to the Governor on Agri Project.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you, please, but if you can switch your video on so we can engage with you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. I think it's okay now.
Nope.
No, we cannot. We still can't see you.
But I can see.
Yes. Okay. Now we can see you.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was you. No, we can't. We still are.
Okay. Is it okay now?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, maybe you can carry on, and then while someone else is speaking, maybe you can try and sort that out. So just carry on with your response, please.
Okay. Can you please repeat that question?
Okay, so what we would be interested in knowing at this point is, what are the state government's initiatives when it comes to agriculture?
Okay.
Cross River State is meant to have a strong competitive advantage in agriculture due to its, land mass and the suitability of its land for growing things like cocoa, oil palm, rubber, etc. So we'd just like to know what the state government has done over the last 6 years and what it's doing in the area of agriculture.
Okay, fine. In the last 6 years, the governor, Senator Professor Ben Ayade, had done a lot in the area of agriculture. Just like you've already said, that Cross River State, in fact, you know, naturally, Cross River State is a very fertile land. The 21,503,263 square.
Iso Bassey West. So he's holding a conference.
Sorry, I'm going to mute everybody, and then I would unmute you, SA, please, so that we don't get interruptions coming in. Okay, please carry on, Mr. Kuku.
All right. Just like you rightly said, you know, the land mass in Cross River State is about 21,503,263 square kilometers. And every land in Cross River State is fertile. So that is to tell you that any kind of crop you want to farm or cultivate in Cross River State, you have it at that level. And the governor had deemed it so necessary to take it as a priority that, in fact, if there's nowhere he would invest, he should invest in agriculture, especially that we're having a drift in oil. Gone are those days when we talk of oil as our major source of revenue or income generation. Of course, you know, we have lost a lot to Cameroon and the 76% to Akwa Ibom. So the governor in the past 6 years had deemed it fit to invest so much in agriculture. And one of those sectors is, or the subsector, is the rice seed and seedling multiplication factory, which is 100% completion. Of course, with that, you can see that for the past 2 years, we've been supplying rice seedlings up to Niger State, Benue, Ebonyi. Of course, it has always been from a demand from the federal government under the refund project, that is Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria. So far, the first demand they made and we supplied to them was about 2-point-something billion, and the second was about 3, and that is all yielding back to the Cross River State coffers. And in fact, I will tell you that apart from the rice seedling and seed multiplication factory, we also have the chicken factory, which if you go online, most times they discuss about it. You'll see that Cross River State today is producing chicken, though we are making plans to see how we can start exporting. But within the country, our chickens are going far. Of course, in this past season of Yuletide, we all enjoyed from it. Today, we are talking about the Kisimi noodles, which has just been launched in the market. So we have noodles now in Cross River State. These are all deliberate attempts to put Cross River State in a map where we had not been before. And you know, initially we were a civil service state. And being that the governor is changing the narratives, I think that's one of the parts he has chosen, which is agriculture. And outside the Kisimi noodles, which is down in the market, we also have the cocoa processing factory, which is located in Ikom. Of course, about 6 months ago, most of us who visited there had enjoyed the proceeds of that cocoa, where chocolates are being produced, and it's so nourishing. Of course, the white men who are partnering with Cross River State government on that have testified that is one of the best chocolate factory we ever have in this part of the world.
Listen, let me interrupt you briefly, if you don't mind. So you said the state has a cocoa factory, and
yes,
and it's processing and actually making chocolates. Is that correct?
You're very, very correct.
Okay, maybe I will just throw this open to the panelists, because I think you guys are all based in Calabar. I mean, you know, are we aware, for instance, would these chocolates be in Value Mart or in you know, the shops on Marian? Who's actually consuming these chocolates? Are they available and you know, for the public to consume?
Can I come in again?
Yes,
Can I
please.
respond to that? You know,
Go ahead.
it's still on the process of test run. And you know, we must get a good number of it before it will be supplied to the market. Especially that we don't want a situation where the targeted suppliers would run out of demand. So on that note, the government is making sure we get enough of this produce before it goes into the market officially. But for now, it has been launched. So soon, in this same 2022, you're going to find it on the streets of Marian, as well as other local government areas in Cross River State.
Okay. All right, Ese, thanks. I think I will go to Muyi Ladoja next, but before I do that, you know, I'm going to, you know, Ese, I'm going to be blunt with you. So there are some people who on this call who believe that, you know, the governor opens up a factory, you know, the factory is kitted up, and you know, it's a nice photo opportunity. The governor lives there, it's locked up, or you know, it's those that the projects are not actually delivering value, even those that are claimed to be 100% correct. So that is what I know that a number of people on this call would feel. So I don't know if you want to address that before I.
You know, the governor is one man who likes standards, and you know, in our society today, one of those challenges we've always had is the issue of bureaucracy. So because of some of these bureaucratic bottlenecks, he has to put, if you check the last time at about 4 or 5 years back, when he launched his 2 signature projects, he actually felt, oh, Nigerians will be happy that today we are going to have a super highway, we are going to have a deep seaport. He never thought of the bureaucratic bottleneck that were involved. He went into the how do you call it, the clearing of bushes and so on. All of a sudden, he was asked to bring an AIA report. So I think he's so schooled when it comes to that now, that with all of these that have been constructed in Cross River State, these establishments are going to work. Even when he'll be waiting for all of these things to come to pass, for the proper documents to come, he still makes sure that let them be produced. So as I'm talking to you now, I just got into Calabar. I stopped over at Ekori, the same toothpick factory, which so many persons said it wasn't working. Being that I have a meeting with this Zoom meeting by 4, I had to stop over in Ekori and ask few of the staffs, and they said they are working. Of course, they brought out toothpaste, which they have packaged and are going to take to the market in less than some days. So they are working.
Okay, Ese, thanks very much. I think I'm sure people would have questions for you. You know, the definition of working, you know, for some people maybe, can we see those products out in the market? You know, can we? It's one thing to go there and see a few toothpicks. It's one thing to go to the garment factory, see people working, but what is the output of it? And, you know, to what extent is the output affecting the economy of Cross River State? But thanks very much for your responses. I'm going to go to Mr. Muyi Ladoja.
Okay.
Muyi, you're a private sector participant in agriculture in Cross River State since 2000. I don't know if it's oil palm specifically that your company does, but tell us about your experience till date and what you think the prospects and the opportunities within agriculture are in Cross River State.
Thanks, Iso. Good afternoon, everybody. In trying to prepare for this seminar, this meeting, I promised myself I would not read up on any statistics. I don't want to read statistics. I don't want to look at all of those things, so that I can speak, just like you have asked, properly from experience. To start with, in terms of agriculture, I think there's some things that have been missed when we talk about agriculture, because everybody sort of sees agriculture still as this, let's try and help the people type of business. It is not. Agriculture probably still is, or should I say has become, maybe the second largest earner of income for for the private sector, big players after oil and gas. Now, culture, everybody develops everything from infrastructure to marketing. You essentially create a town in everything you want to do. You do your own equipment, your own processing, your own marketing, your own energy. So, but once you get to grip.
Hello, Muye. Okay, Mr. Ladoja, I believe, might be having some challenges with his connectivity. So I think we'll go back to him once we're able to resolve that. Ms. Iso Bassey, I think it would be good to hear from you. You're also a private sector participant, and you're someone who's, relatively younger, so we'd like to know your experience. What motivated you to go into agriculture, and what has your experience been till date? Glory, if you're speaking, you need to unmute yourself.
We can't hear her. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. Being a young person and a youth in Cross River State, my experience so far in agriculture has been with the people in Cross River State. Agriculture is beyond what our parents were looking at. We have taken agriculture to the next level. And so far, it's not just about cash crops only. People underestimate the other process, like where you have other products like the animal husbandry sectors. People have underlooked that aspect of it. Then people keep looking at the cash crop, and that's where the problem lies. That's where the problem really lies in the state. If the state can look beyond the cash crop aspect and look towards other means of agriculture and how it can benefit the state, it will be a very wonderful one. Because if you look at cash crop, it takes years to bring back returns. But as simple as pepper, vegetable, and other crop production, if you invest into them within few months or few years, you start having good returns. So I believe if the state can really look into that area, and there is a monitoring aspect, like having some point, creating a farmer cooperative, working towards monitoring and evaluation system, it will be very okay for everybody. Then we should also look at finance. A lot of young persons like me have the dream. They want to go into agriculture, but the finance aspect is out of it. And I'm speaking from experience. If the government can invest on the youth, not just giving them money and say they can't make returns, but give them money, form a cooperative, like a farmer cooperative, put them together and let them on their own will tell you what they'll be able to invest in. Sponsor them, let there be a monitoring panel, a monitoring system that will help them monitor what they are doing. Then the state will be better in terms of agriculture. Okay, you may say, okay, how will that go through? When you sponsor the youth with finance and your monitoring system is unique, then you can help them in terms of marketing. Because a lot of persons, I work with a lot of persons in the state that have the money to invest, maybe little to invest, but their issue is the marketing system. Who will buy our product? At the end of our end product, who is going to buy? If the state can create an avenue for that okay, if we actually invest in the young persons, will help you market, maybe package and market your product, then it will be a very unique one for everybody in the state. Then in terms of taxation, if the states can sponsor the youth or anybody in agriculture in any area of field they wish to, not just looking at the cash crop aspect, in terms of crop production and animal husbandry, just allow them choose what they want to do and invest in them. In that way, you're not just helping them establish or helping the states build a future for agriculture. You're also generating tax from them in the little way you can. So to me, that if this area are being looked at, then agriculture will be a thing of Cross River State in the future. If this channel can be looked at, form a farmer cooperative where you can organize them together, bring them into an umbrella. Then you set up a monitoring system, monitor their day-to-day activities, so that at the end of the day, you know, say, okay, we invested and we had nothing in return. If there is a monitoring system guiding them, and at the end of it, you are able to help them sell their end products.
Okay.
Then the government.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for your contribution. I have a question for you before I go back to Mr. Ladoja to, to finish his remarks. So my question to you: you're a young person, you're based in Calabar, you're into agriculture. Has there been any form of support for your agro ventures from the government of Cross River State, whether it be by way of maybe providing seedlings or maybe providing loans or providing education on, how best to grow, maybe particular crops or rare particular livestock? So it would be interesting to know to what extent you may have received support from the government of Cross River State. And then maybe you can also go into a bit of detail about what agro ventures you are actually involved in. And before you go on, I can see, we've got at the moment 55 people on the call. I know that my good friend, Mr. Bernard Iso, is very eager to ask a question, and I'm sure there are other people here who would have questions. So if you can use the, I think the icon on Zoom to just indicate that you would like to ask a question. And if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, just type in your question there, and we'll try and put those questions across to the panel. Glory, please carry on.
The answer is no. For the past 3 years, I have been into agribusiness. I have not gotten any support from the state government. It has been from different private sectors. So the answer is no.
Okay, so the help that you've received from the private sector, is that by way of financing or by way of education about how to go about things the right way?
Education.
Okay, so how, because like you said, projects in agriculture are capital intensive. So how have you funded your own ventures?
Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Have been able to sponsor of my own adventure is through partnership. Yes, through partnership from different persons.
Okay, thanks very much. So Mui, if we just go back to you, please. You were frozen midway through.
Yes, sorry, I was frozen. I was coming to the point where for me, from a private sector, I don't think the government has any business being an investor in agriculture. They should continue to ensure that the working tools to make agricultural work are available, as opposed to being an investor. That's why I was asking, all these projects that they're doing, are they going to privatize it? Because the agriculture sort of requires your all and all. It does require an all and all, and it requires for you to be exceptionally business-minded. Now, what tends to happen in this state, which is why I wasn't going to talk about agriculture in Cross River State or in any state, but agriculture as a business entity. Now, there are a couple of things that people do not realize. Globally, we are getting to the point where we cannot feed ourselves. Now, when that happens, every single bit of crop, every single bit of land, everything that we need will have to be harnessed. But what tends to happen, the developed areas look at, I'm not even talking about out of Nigeria, in Nigeria, how do we provide the enabling environment for investors to come in? I will tell you a little bit about what Edo State was trying to do, is trying to do in oil palm, because I was also the former chairman of Plantation Owners Forum of Nigeria. And so it was stuff between Edo State and Cross River State. Where do the oil palm investors come? Now, we were able to bring in Wilma, which was started by Donald Duke's time and was finished by Leo Lemoke's time. Now, Wilma is probably the single largest oil palm developer in the world. They're out of Singapore. Now, they have raised the bar in Cross River State. You know, what that means now is that apart from Wilma's own plantation and maybe JB and ourselves, every other person that has any parcel of oil palm land is trying to get Banga to sell to one of us. So you're going back to say, okay, because one of the key most important things that any farmer wants is, where is my outlet? How do I make commercial success of these things? Now, in the past 3 years, the price of one bunch of Banga or a ton of Banga has gone from maybe 15,000 to now getting to almost 60, 70,000 naira. Now, people are going to any slave to clean up their farms. You will not see an oil palm, any oil palm holding in Cross River State right now. Okay, that is not clean. That everybody's not trying to get their Banga out to sell to somebody, because you will always get it to buy. I mean, you always have a market for that. That is talking about the smallholders having somewhere to sell their products to. Now, before we go further, we also invest in rice in Ogoja area. We have about 500 hectares. We had our primary processing, our development, and unfortunately, our first crop, which is partly our fault, our first crop was flooded, but we're still going back to it. But the message I'm trying to get across to, especially the smallholders, especially the young people, do not look for handouts. Look for a market that can consume what you're making. And I'll tell you that there was a time we started poultry in Cross River State. This was about 8-9 years ago. We did it for 3 years before we realized we could not scale up, because the really big guys were coming in from Port Harcourt and Lagos and could not match them for pricing. But what has happened for the people that we trained, even some of our own workers that we trained in terms of developing their poultry, they have now gone on to have their own little small cottage industries. But what they also do, before you go and do know that you're going to have maybe 1,000, 2,000 birds, or even as small as 100 birds in 2 weeks' time, you've already marketed that stuff. So you've already created a niche market for yourself, either in a hotel close to you. So for us, or for me, in terms of agriculture, you must seriously think of it as a business. And in business, the first thing you want to do is, who am I going to sell my product to?
Okay.
And that is not something that government can do for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks very much. I have a couple of questions to ask you.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is, so you grow oil palm you've got plantations, you grow oil palm in Cross River State.
Yes.
Where does that oil palm go? How much of it stays back? What is your market? What's your market for oil palm?
Okay.
And also
let me give you a brief history of oil palm in Nigeria and globally. Okay, it's going to take all of 1 minute. Nigeria produces about.
I can see my honorable chairman for account by local government. I greet you, my brother. If you can mute yourself, please. All right, we go on, please.
Okay, Nigeria produces maybe about 1 million tons of oil palm, and Nigeria consumes maybe 2.5 million tons of oil palm. So we have about 1.5 million tons of oil palm that's either imported in legally and they pay the duties and the levies, or it's smuggled in through our neighboring West African countries in names of other things. So, you know, you get a lot of people that sort of ask you, oh, I have an order to export so much oil palm from Nigeria. Nobody exports oil palm from Nigeria. We don't make enough. We're not going to make enough probably in our lifetime. Because the more we continue to grow in terms of development, and we have grown substantially in the past 10 years, the more we continue to grow, the more our consumption also increases to cater for two things: increase in population and increase in taste. Oil palm is one of those products that has so many uses. So let's put it like this. If you're consuming maybe 50 grams of fat and oils, okay, and a majority of that in Nigeria is oil palm per annum, the more you come up in affluency, you probably will start consuming 4 times that amount because it's in other things. You want to eat better, you know, you use this oil for frying and also with the population growth. So it's not so much a matter of market. It's always a matter of quality, quantity, and pricing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but are you saying, did I hear you correctly, that no oil palm gets exported from Nigeria?
No, not in bulk. The oil palm that gets exported from Nigeria is you're exporting to diaspora because they like the taste of what is being eaten here. But commercially, on a B2B, business-to-business basis, none. Because our prices are more favorable here than exporting it.
Right.
And we don't even have enough. We don't have enough.
Okay. I have just one question for you, and I think the answer to this can be a yes or no, and then we'll go on to Professor Ebigwai. But you said that I think you have a 50-hectare rice.
500 hectares.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. 500 hectares of rice, whatever, in Ogoja. Yeah. Did you get your seedlings from the rice seedling factory of the Cross River State government or from elsewhere?
Simple answer is no.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. I think I'll take this up with the special advisor to the governor, because if
we also did not ask for it, we don't go looking for it.
I understand that. I understand that. But I would imagine that if the state government is investing in an industry to produce rice seedlings, that they will be trying to make sure that those seedlings are available to businesses in Cross River State. But Prof.
Okay. Can I give you a small further answer on that, on why we might not have?
Sure, go on.
Okay. Now, the same seedling producing equipment that the Cross River State have, we also have it on our site. Now, we haven't used it yet, but the seedlings that Cross River State is producing for commercial planters, you need rice planters. So you need to make an investment in the rice planter. As opposed to
rice planters, you mean like machines?
Yes, machines.
Okay.
For commercial planters. Now, for small scale holders, they might be able to do it because when you find out the seedlings bed are very tightly knit. So planters will give you a better accuracy in planting. For small scale holders, you have to sort of put it up one by one and plant it and stuff like that. Not interesting for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Prof, I'm interested in the economics of agriculture in Cross River State, because, you know, personally, I look and I think, is this rocket science? So we have a competitive advantage in agriculture. We have arable land. Can we not develop some kind of a strategy that says maybe we concentrate on 1 or 2 crops? So maybe it could be oil palm or it could be cocoa, not spreading thin in, you know, so many different areas, but just focusing on 2 things and saying, I know that the figures are there that would tell you, for instance, that if you grow X number of hectares of cocoa, it will produce X number of tons of this. And can we produce a financial plan that can get the state out of debt and put the state on a sound economic footing, while at the same time, obviously creating jobs for the young people in the state? So that's, I'm addressing that at Professor Ebigwai.
Iso, please, I want you to address that to me as well, after him.
Okay, so after Prof, we'll come to you, Mui. Thanks. Prof, sorry, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Yeah, certainly we can as a state. Like what African Development Bank has just done, they've delineated the country into agricultural clusters. And Cross River State is in cluster 4. And each of the cluster is assigned a group of agricultural produce that they think they have comparative advantage over others. In cluster 4, EFDB earmark. In cluster 4, we have Cross River State, we have Ebonyi State, we have Anambra State, we have Benue State, and we have Taraba State in cluster 4. And they group them based on their produce, agricultural produce, or where they have comparative advantage. And the crops that they are marked for this cluster 4 is industrial cassava, cocoa, rice, cocoa, industrial cassava, rice, and horticulture. These are the 4 crops that they are marked for Cross River State. So coming to your question now, you could see that somehow, that they've been able to say, okay, Cross River State, this is an area where we think you have comparative advantage over others. Because it's better you grow plants, you grow crops where you have comparative advantage so that you can maximize the economy of scale. Now, what EFDB do, which I was trying to ask, which I'm trying to ask the special advisor, because I know that in the SAPs, they created what we call the special agro-processing zone. And it's not just about the production. It is about the processing. It's about making inputs available. It's about making service centers, service infrastructure, putting them in place. And I know that, for example, in Cross River State, we have the ICOM, which you just mentioned. In ICOM, we're going to have what we call the cocoa factory. It's being sponsored by Chris Agara. And I know that as at just last month here, the money for SAPZ cluster 4 was just approved. And if it's just been approved at the AFDB Board of Governors, it has not been disbursed. So I don't know when we started producing the chocolates, because offtake of the cocoa that AFDB will sponsor is for chocolate production. And if you start all this chocolate production and all those things, there are a lot of regulatory processes you have to go through before it is eventually approved. You have to go to NAFDAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria. You have to go through a lot of regulatory processes. And I know it has not been done. So it's always good we call a spade a spade. Now, if we look at cocoa, we have comparative advantage. We can actually go into there. And you see that comes to where the state government is actually taking a lot of money. We've gotten a lot of money from Central Bank. They have the Anchor Borrower Scheme. They have the appeal. They have what we call the appeal. We have the CAC loan. And the state government has been taking money from all this, saying that they're going to grow the agricultural sector. More often than not, this money has not gotten to the farmers. But there's a problem. The federal government has a problem here. They give the state government the money, thinking that they're going to give the states, the farmers, the money. But what happens is that immediately the federal government gives the state the money, they start deducting it from their FAC. So it's not telling the state government, why, in as well they've deducted it from me. So why do I have to give to the ordinary farmers? The federal government to CBN would have waited and said they want this money to be paid back directly by the farmers and not deducting at source from FAC. So, but come to Cross River State. This money that they've gotten from federal government through the Anchor Bureau, the appeal and everything, only little that has gotten the way of the farmers. And if it does not get to the farmers and you want to create the factories yourself, it will not work. Governments are bad managers of business. Create the enabling environments and private investors will drive the factories. In fact, what works in developed countries is small cottage industries. An industry that can just employ 5, 10 persons, 7, 8 persons. And before you know, you start having value chain. Let this money that they are getting from federal government through loans, CBN, appeal, CAC loans, let them find a way whereby it can percolate to the persons that are interested in farming. It is only when we do that that we begin to grow the sector. Because if we don't, you will find us moving in motion without movement. So back to your question, we have 4 crops that will have comparative advantage. Like in Obubra, having a lot of cassava. AFDB is establishing a lot of cassava through Krisagara in the Yamitet. And they're having cassava, they're going to have cassava processing factory where they're going to process it into different forms of cassava. That is one area. Cocoa is another area. Horticulture, which is fruits. If you go to the Banliku area, those areas that are closer to Benue State, you'll find that they have a lot of fruits there. And so we can go into juice manufacturing, juice processing. And if you do that, knowing fully well that your crops, your produce will be uptaken by these processing factories, you'll be forced to go back to the land, especially when there are improved varieties. It is only when we do all this that you begin to see a shift, an increase in the GDP, and it's going to percolate to the ordinary farmers, and you begin to see them smiling to the bank with a lot of money. Thank you.
Okay, Prof, thanks very much. Mui, I'm sure you're itching to give your response, but let me go to the special advisor to the governor, because I was a bit concerned to know that you're embarking on a venture to plant 500 hectares of rice, and the state government claims to have this facility that produces rice seedlings, but there's no connection there. It points me back to the question essay. A lot of people feel that the governor embarks on these things really just for show, and that at the end of the day, they don't translate to any real value within the economy of Cross River State. Maybe you will speak about that. Also, even though indeed I agree that agriculture people should not depend on government. It's a business, we shouldn't depend on government, but I think that government through its partnerships is able to provide at least education to farmers on perhaps how best to do things in order to achieve better yields. So when Iso Bassey said that she's had an agro venture in Cross River State, but absolutely no assistance or whatever from the government, I don't know how you would like to respond to that, Mr. Kuku. You need to unmute yourself.
I've just done that.
Thank you.
Well, first, let me react to what Edith Thompson said earlier. Her contribution was how government should have a kind of a data for all young farmers. Yes, we have that existing. In fact, we have the chairman, Cross River State Farmers Council. That office has every data of both young and old farmers in Cross River State. And most persons, presently the project appeals, which is ongoing in Cross River State, of which I think we are in the last stage, which is the implementation stage. I know participants are submitting their quotation or something. Now, we have 1,700 cross-variants who benefited from this project appeal. And between now and in the next 3 weeks, if not mistaken, the account will be credited. I'm very much aware they have opened accounts for them. It's between Zenith Bank and FCMB. Those are the 2 banks handling it. Their accounts will be credited in order for them, for the service providers to supply them the needed inputs which they need for their businesses. Secondly, there is a team, a technical team which will be monitoring these same farmers who are getting these grants. Yes, it's a World Bank project, but Cross River State government had paid their own counterpart funding. And you know, as government, we regard that very stuff as loan. It's a loan we have collected from CBN, from the World Bank, just for our citizens to benefit. So out of this 1,700 that are to benefit from it, they should take it as a loan if I were to be a beneficiary. Yes, the name there is stack a grant. So many youth looks at grants being a free thing from government, and most of them tend not to go and invest in the stated project which they applied for. And that's the reason why we have a technical team to monitor this program to make sure we get to the last stage. Back to your question that Prof said, why is the rice seedlings? Also, that wasn't from Prof, from me. That why is the rice seedling not have gotten to the private sector?
No, that wasn't for me. We never wanted the seedlings from the government.
Okay. But Iso Bassey made a remark on that. That why is it that the rice seedling is not getting to private investors? You know, you can't produce these rice seedlings and keep. They'll get bad. So if you demand, the government will definitely produce. And it is not only machines that are used to plant this rice. I have tried it myself. I have a very big farm of rice in Ogoja. I'm from Ogoja. I'm from Shibu, to be very precise. And you know, we are the agrarian society. In fact, predominantly they were all farmers. I have farmed the same rice without the use of a machine, and it worked. So I think, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Okay, yeah, Ese, thanks very much. Thank you. I think another question that I'd like to find out from you is, what is the state government doing in terms of creating an environment that would attract investors in agriculture? So it seems very much that the approach is, one, we set up industries. Two, we receive money from whether it's from the CBN or from other the World Bank or whatever for agriculture. My concern with that is that approach is not going to create the wealth that we need. Okay, so that money comes and it's given us maybe loans to small scale farmers, or let's face it, also a lot of it ends up in the hands of politicians and people who are linked to politicians. So what is the state government doing, or what has it done in terms of being able to get people like Real Oil, for instance? If we can get, my thinking is that if we can get like 50 companies like Real Oil operating in Cross River State that are raising their own money, they're not collecting money from the government, they're raising their own money, they are investing in equipment, they see this as a business where they are accountable to their shareholders, and so they have to make a profit from it. It seems that is the approach for creating jobs for young people and actually growing the economy. So I don't know what the state government has done with regard to providing that sort of environment for serious players.
The dream behind all of this investment in agriculture is for private investors to come in, partner with Cross River State, or better still, take off from there. In fact, after about a month ago or two, there was a referendum in Cross River State. And what was the referendum about? The referendum was, should the state government privatize the state-owned factories and companies which are littered across the 3 senatorial districts, or should he not? At the end of the day, there was both online and physical voting, dropping of documents, and we discovered that Conservarians don't want all of these factories to be privatized. Today, Matuka, the CEO of Coast Cherries, had taught Conservative State factories as constructed by Senator Professor Ben Ayede right from Obaliku down to the south here. And of course, we're all waiting for that referendum so he could come in. Let's take, for example, the rice mill in Ogoja. He had, at the point, wanted taking it, and the governor said, no, let us hold on, since the referendum was on, so we can hear from Conservarians if we are to private. Because definitely, you know how government works. As you leave, another man might come and want to start his own project from the scratch, and this sustainability approach has always been the problem in politics or in governance. So thinking that all of these projects that monies have been sunk in shouldn't be kept aside, he thought of the privatization. And Conservarians said no. So the government is making everything possible to make sure that we put all of these things into use. But ourselves are saying no to it. You know one thing, you must start and others come in. Before you talk of creating job employment for Conservarians, where are the offices? In which establishment are you creating job employment for the citizens? And that's why he started by constructing these factories. And now in constructing the factories, you definitely need the private sector to partner with in order for those things to be sustained. Between me and you, Iso Bassey, you know very well that most of these projects, after the expiration of his administration, they might not see the light of the day. And now what happens to a Conservarian who has been employed to work under this same establishment? If the government which is coming to take over would not want to go into it or would not want to sustain that very project, maybe might want to start his own from fresh. So that's the reason why it's privatized. It will be of help. And so on. So I think the government is trying its own part to make sure that all of this will be sustained and let the common man have one or two to do. Okay, take for instance the garment factory. We have over 3,000 persons working in the garment factory. You understand?
Sorry, I'm going to have to appeal, please. If you can mute. Pardon? No, Essay, sorry, just hold on. Please, there's someone who has a lot of noise in the background. Please, if you can mute yourself, we'll appreciate it. Mr. Ayang.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Essay, please. Mr. Ayang, please, you need to mute yourself, please. All right. Okay. Yeah. Mr. Akuko, please carry on.
Okay. I think I've exhausted that part.
Okay. I'm going to throw it open for some questions. But before I do that, there's something you said that concerns me a bit. And I'll tell you what it is. And maybe you can come back to address that later. So you talked about the government having an intention to privatize and actually subjecting that to a referendum. That concerns me a bit because I would have thought that the decision to privatize or not to privatize would be based on figures, based on empirical, on a financial plan, on figures, on a referendum is something that you throw open and you say, should we do this or shouldn't we? And if the citizens don't know what comes in from any of those industries and what the potentials are, it's an emotional decision. Oh no, we shouldn't privatize. Oh yes, we should privatize. And I am from Cross River State. I'm not aware, I wasn't approached to participate in any referendum. So I'm wondering who took part in this referendum and how a referendum to, how a decision to privatize or not to privatize several industries will be based on a referendum. You don't have to answer it straight away. I'm going to throw it open now for questions. So let's start with Bernard Iso. If you're still here, if you can unmute yourself, you can fire off your question. Okay, there is, so if you have a question, please just indicate by raising your hand, using the Zoom tool there. I'm not sure Bernard is still here. Let me go to, there's someone called Jacobus. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please. Okay, we also have Isaac Omegba. Isaac, if you're here, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
I have some clarification questions to Mr. Muyi when he was commenting on production, and you should produce what you know you can sell. A country of 200 million people, there is nothing, even sand, you bag sand and stitch and put in front of your house. It will only take some time. You will see somebody come and buy it and market is open. Sales is not our problem in this country. It is sweet policy and poor execution. The government haven't taken interest to really help the youth. Is the government. Government are not businessmen, we know it, but they have to create an enabling environment. Say agriculture generally, first, you need credit, that is money. Second, you need land. Go to land, very, very difficult to get. Somebody who is just starting a business, you can't be a millionaire. It's not possible. If you want to start a place, see 1 acre of land, just an acre, how much is it costly in Cross River State? The community is there, that is the owner of the land. So the government cannot just come. They have to play a very vital role. Though they are not businessmen, nobody is asking them to be involved in production and processing. No, is to create that enabling environment. The facilities, see the roads to your farm or to your business. You can't construct a road to your place. You can't open a road. You know how much is it to construct 1 kilometer of road? So everything bound down to the government. And secondly, the ST said to privatize industries. What have these industries produced that you are now privatizing? So there are so many other things, because you can go to power. Let's assume Mito juice processing. Where is the power for storage? So there are so many other things that we must consider, and it's bound down to the government still. The government is not really active, and there's no continuity, because if this one starts this, the next one will deviate. The previous one is dead. How can we continue like this? And the youth, they go to any city or any village, you will see a lot of you doing nothing, and it's not their fault. What do you think they will do? Nothing. Because the government is not interested. We have to say it straight. No matter the language they may speak to convince us. Because I'm not from here, but I have stayed here more than 30 years. There's no part of Cross River I don't know, from Calabar to Budu, from Calabar to Itubri, from Calabar to Oban and Boda. See vast land, nothing is happening there, but go there, you want to cultivate anything. You will see so many people come out for compensation because the government is feel mute about it.
Okay, Mr. Omegba, thanks very much. I think yours has been more of remarks than questions, and I think that just what you're saying makes absolute sense, which is the way I interpret what you're saying. What's the government doing, spending money on building industries when there are no roads to evacuate produce? We don't have electricity to store materials. So there's a lot more. So that, there's a lot more the government could be doing just in terms of providing the right environment for business to thrive. And I think that that's a very good point. So there are other questions here. Kelly Ayamba, Kelly, if you can unmute yourself. Kelly is my brother. Kelly is a former commissioner for finance in Cross River State. Kelly, please go on with your question or comments.
Okay, thank you, Iso. And the panelists, I think this is a very good medium for us to interact and provide solutions to the economic issues facing Cross River State particularly. Mine is just a few comments on the presentation by the special advisor, I suppose, about the issue of privatization of the industries and the result of the referendum, which has caused the government to stop that process. First, I think that's a bit, if you ask me, that's a bit weird, because to establish those industries, to have established the industry in the first place, I'm sure there was a plan of action. There was a plan. There should have been a business plan that shows how the government planned to navigate from the point of establishment to the point of operation and then sustainability over the years. I don't want to talk about partnering with the private sector from the very beginning. That should have also been it, because the way private sector work, you don't buy what you do not know the cost and the financials. They will have to do a lot of analysis and a lot of reviews and a lot of due diligence and so on and so forth. So first of all, the government should have partnered with the private sector, with investors, to put into place these industries with a plan on how they are expected to operate over the years and be sustained. But if the government didn't do that for whatever reason, probably the government felt that they should facilitate the process by first establishing the industries, which is not normally the case and shouldn't have been the case. But that has been done now. I'm sure before that was done, or the industry was established, there should have been a business plan, or there were business plans for each of those industries that show how the industries were supposed to be sustained over the years. Each government spends maximum of 8 years. So the next government may not want to carry, heavy debt, may not want to carry white elephant projects, so to say. So they may want to drop those things. So the first thing would have been to ensure that there's a plan for sustainability over the years. Now, if there was a business plan for each of these that show how they were supposed to be sustained over the years, that business plan would have also included, since the government had gone ahead to construct, it should have also included the process of engaging with the private sector to sustain them. I don't think it is right to say that the result of a referendum says the industry should not be privatized, and the SC actually expresses fears that the next government may abandon them. So where really are we? Where are we? What do we want to achieve by even jettisoning the process of privatization, even though it's going to be a very cumbersome engagement, because a lot of analysis has to be done? But I think the government should go ahead with that. The government cannot afford to jettison that on the basis of a referendum. I've not read the result of that referendum. I've not seen much about it. But I think that to say that we are getting that process of privatization because the referendum said we should do so. Cross variants say they don't want it. I don't think it's in the best interest of crossover state and her people. And the government should not go that route. That excuse should not be given. It do not help us. I suggest very strongly, and I've made this suggestion personally to the government, that privatization is key, is fundamental. That's what is required. This is the industry. The government is not the businessman. The government cannot run business. The government has no business with business. The private sector should be engaged to take over this and run them and manage them to sustainability over this so that cross variants can benefit from enough employment and so on and so forth.
Kelly, thanks very much.
So that's the point to make. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The point is well noted. Thanks a lot. Hussein Etim. Hussein, I believe you're in the US. If you want to unmute yourself, please go ahead and make your contribution. And
okay,
just something Hussein to speak. Okay, so I'm trying to remember the gentleman who spoke first and said that he has lived in Cross River State maybe for 30 years, but isn't from there. I think that we need to be changing our mindset. And that's one of the things that we seek to do with the Cross River movement. People who, if you live in Cross River State, you have your livelihood in Cross River State, you're a Cross Riverian. Hussein, I know that you're in the US, but I know you lived for many years in Calabar and you were a banker. Go on and give us your contribution.
Iso, thanks so much for putting this up and for the opportunity to make an input. Greetings to everybody on the panel and to my neighbor, the former Commissioner for Finance, Ayamba. We had a lot of nice time living together then. Yeah, straight to the point now. All I hear, the comment I want to make is that all I hear is like, we are more focused on the big holders, those who have the resources that can set up big farms and big agricultural projects and plans to employ the Cross Riverians, instead of looking at how we could even help the small farm holders, because that's where we're going to suck up the bulk of the unemployed youth in their small little farm holdings. One of the presenters talked about, or someone made a comment that, oh, they planted rice and it was soaked up by flooding. And because they are big, they have the resources, they're still going ahead. I don't know how many small scale holders will be able to go through that, given that agriculture is a very, very challenging business venture. You only need one bad harvest or one bad season and you're out of business. So I keep hearing that government should not intervene on behalf of the small scale holders. That is not my view. I think government, even in developed worlds here, small scale holders, government intervenes by ways of subsidy annually. Where would we rather that the government spends our resources? Is it on very phantom projects or in supporting the people that will take back the eggs and the bacon back to their family directly? I think what we can encourage and recommend is that targeted government support to the small scale holders, like that young lady that I saw I listened to initially, will go a long way in ensuring that they grow in the scheme, because there are a lot of challenges to face. Land is fragmented. I'm sure they have she might have a small parcel of land to do what she intends to do. The fragmentation of land, infrastructure is not there. There's no power. Everything is there. So there should be government help in that, guys. We can't just leave agriculture and so it's a private business that the private guy needs to swim or sink alone. That's my take on that. And further
I've got a question for you, which is that if we continue to look at it, and I don't have anything against sort of the smallholder systems and all of that, but can that really produce the wealth that we need as a state to, would that enable us to best leverage on what we have? In a way, we've got to think strategically, right? So if we say, hey, we've got 230 billion plus in debt and we need to get out of debt, we've been in debt as private citizens, and there's pressure on you and you have to think creatively, how do I get out of this situation that I'm in? What do you think is the most effective approach to get out while at the same time creating these opportunities for young people? We've got to look at it strategically. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think debt by itself is not bad, except it's not channeled when it's not channeled properly.
In our case, where you have revenue of 59 billion a year, and then you have debt of over 230 billion and growing, there's got to be concern. I do understand your point that debt in itself is not bad, but I think in the case of Cross River State, our debt is unsustainable. Our debt burden prevents us from doing a lot of the things that we should be doing to develop our state.
Okay, I think the state where it is now, I'm from Akwa Ibom, but I call that home, and it's been home. It's the only place home that I know. Even in the States here, when I vacation there, I feel more at home all the time. I think what the state needs to do, because there's been a lot of, in my opinion, this purely my opinion, there were a lot of projects that was taken up by the government that if the government can privatize them, like all these agro projects taken up by the present government, that was the wrong route. I would have even preferred, although people might talk about cronyism, calling a private sector guy that is well versed in that industry and funding them and putting an enabling environment for them to take it up. Now the government is talking about, they are not going to privatize because there was a referendum. When they set up the factories, there were no referendum by the people to know even if that is what they wanted. So exactly. They need to find a way to privatize it, give it to private individuals, and should focus more on targeted support to those areas, those industries, to enable them thrive when the current administration is no longer in government.
Okay, Osen, thanks very much. So I'm conscious of the time of the fact that we're running out of time, and I'd like us to bring this conversation to a close within the next 8 minutes. So I'm going to throw open for one more question, and then after that I will throw it to the panelists for closing remarks. So Akomaye Uga, please, if you unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. And
okay, thank you, Mr. Iso.
Akomaye Uga, I'm sure probably doesn't need an introduction to Perseverance, but he's also a member of the Board of Trustees of the Cross River Movement. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank all the members of the panel for everything that has been said. I will take just a couple of seconds real quick because time is of the essence here. After my first meeting with the current governor, I had intended to send an idea to him as part of my support to the government. I did not follow through with that for some personal reasons. Anyways, but it had to do with agriculture. Part of it had to do with agriculture. Now, you have asked about how the government can make money and how we can engage the citizens as far as employment. I think that those two areas are key. Take, for example, what if the government had a plan? And by way of plan, what if the government already plans to produce some kind of crops, process them, and export so that they can get foreign exchange from it? And what if there were clusters of people given the responsibility who sign up by some way? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to rush through it. Who had the responsibility to supply the crops, and the government will buy up everything that will be produced, provided the set standards were met. And so we have people in some areas, some zones of the state producing certain kinds of crops. The government has processing factories for those kinds of crops. And so these people produce as much as possible. The government buys up everything that is produced. You have a lot of people who want to produce, knowing that they're not going to be thinking of how do I market, how do I make money. The government has signed them up already. And so they produce as much as possible. The government buys everything processes and does the export, earns the money, and that comes back into the coffers of the government. So the people are employed strategically. They are not in the kind of employment where the government pays them monthly, salary. They are employed in a manner where they produce and government buys from them. So they can go on and produce as much as their strength can carry, knowing that the government will buy. The government buys, processes, exports, makes the money. If there is a system set in that manner, we can be sure that there will be thousands of young people employed, as well as the government making a lot of money, whether selling locally in the country or by way of export. Think about cassava pellets, for example, a very highly sought for industrial material. I mean, there's a lot we can do, but for the want of time, I'll just stop there. So that's my little contribution.
Mr. Kumaye, thanks very much. Thanks everyone for joining this conversation. I think it's been an exciting one, very engaging. There's been a lot of ideas that have, come out of this. And Prof, I'm going to be reaching out to you to see, to discuss this a little more and to see if, we can work on some ideas together, on how to develop some sort of, I guess, a blueprint or something that can help us harness our potentials in agriculture. I'm going to turn it over to the panelists now to just, give us their closing remarks. And we will start with Ms. Bassey, Glory. So please just give us your closing remarks, and then we'll go on to Mr. Ladoja and Mr. Kuku and Prof.
Good evening, everyone, once again. I still insist that the government should support the youth in terms of financing them, not as a person, not as an individual, but as a cooperative. Let them form a cooperative and finance them and set up a monitoring and evaluation system to run it smoothly. That's my own contribution, and that's my own belief.
Glory, thanks very much. We wish you the best with your ventures.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Mr. Akuku Achiles, Special Advisor to the Governor of Cross River State, your remarks, please.
Iso, please, I didn't get you, please.
Oh,
Can I hear you?
I said, please, just give us your closing remarks, and if you want to address anything.
Okay.
1 minute.
I think I want to really appreciate the time we all took in order to bring one-on-one together. All is for the growth of Cross River State. And I'll still tell you that the government is doing a lot just to see that agriculture will be the live wire of this administration. And he's doing a lot of things to see how the youth will be captured, just like my friend Ed Thompson said. Today we have a Cross River State Microfinance Bank, which is giving out loans to farmers. So I want to advise my young friend, the young farmer here, one of these days, just stroll to Cross River State Microfinance Bank along Marian, and you'll get a loan for yourself. Myself, I have a loan there, maybe because I'm an appointee, so it's been deducted at source. And that loan, I have to utilize it, it's in my farm. So you just go and some questions, you fill your form and you get a loan. So I want to advise every other fellow who is in Cross River State, let's continue to support the government of Senator Ben Ayade, and we shall get it right at the end of the day. Of course, there was a dream when constructing those factories. But again, the targeted raw materials is the challenge, because we decided to support the young farmers, especially those who got loans from anchor borrowers, grants from anchor borrowers, those who got grants from appeal, and some will say, yes, we want to go into cluster farming. At the end of the day, they ran with monies. Meanwhile, we're targeting that these raw materials to feed the mills will come from these persons. But when the aim was defeated, where people ran with the monies, we couldn't have it. That is where it led to the referendum coming where the factories will be privatized. But in any case, I so much appreciate all your contributions, and I've jotted all of it, and it's going to reach the appropriate authority. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Bassey, Iso Bassey, for this time, and I wish that it continues this way. So we'll continue to have an interface with ourselves with regards to our state. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, Ese, thanks very much. Please, which one is your surname and which is your first name? Which is Akuku the surname or?
Yeah, Akuku is the surname. Achille is the first name.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And, thanks for responding to our invitation. It's been a pleasure having you on this conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Muyi Ladoja, over to you, sir.
Okay. First, I need to thank Iso and Edidian for putting this together. It's been wonderful. But now I'm going to say a few things which might not sit very well with a lot of people. First question, we need to ask ourselves, do we want a socialist government? Because a lot of what I hear and the demands I hear of what we want of the government is socialist in type. So that's the one question we need to ask ourselves. Number two, the hierarchy of development of agriculture requires that even smallholders need a fulcrum at their top that will aggregate them, process, market, and push that to where it's supposed to go. So even with that, so when we talk about smallholders, you need to come together because everything we're doing now is much bigger than all of us. I had explained earlier how this had been subconsciously done in oil palm. Now, I would assume that the government's thinking in the privatization of the assets they have developed is to achieve the same thing in cocoa, probably in rice, and which now goes back to what Prof was saying about the special processing zones that AFDB is setting up. Yes, we know it has been approved, and that will go a long way towards doing that. But now let us come back to Cross River State and the people that are saying government. I have one last question for everybody. If government does not provide what you want, what do you do? Thank you.
You've thrown that question there and left us thinking, okay. Muyi, thanks very much. I really appreciate having you and all the panelists on this conversation. Hopefully for everyone who's been part of this conversation this evening, hopefully it's been worth your while. So this is a fortnightly conversation series. And I think for Cross Riverians, lovers of Cross River State, it's a nice relaxing way to to chill out on a Sunday and while thinking and engaging and contributing to the development of our dear state. So if you've not registered, so this is put together by the Cross River Movement, and our website is www.crossrivermove.com. So just visit the website and register. Very importantly, would like to get feedback about today's session and would also love to hear from you about what other topics we should handle in future conversations. So a feedback form was shared earlier, and I'm just going to share it again. So please just, please give us feedback because we'd like to know what your thoughts are. We'd like to see how we can improve this conversation series and which topics would be of interest to you. So just take us, it's not going to be more than a minute. You can follow us on social media, facebook.com/crossrivermove, Twitter @crossrivermove, Instagram @crossriver.move. And we're going to be having the next conversation here on the 23rd of January. I'm not going to tell you what the topic is. You will hear from us before then, but I can assure you that it's going to be a very exciting conversation. But until then, I wish everyone a happy new year and to thank you all for attending this, this conversation. And I'm just going to play, let's just play a quick video just to introduce the Cross River Movement to also just oblige us with a brief moment to share that.
Hey, are you a Cross Riverian or a lover of Cross River State? Have you wondered how you can get involved in creating the Cross River State of your dreams? You are invited to join the Cross River Movement, a non-partisan, not-for-profit movement of Cross Riverians and lovers of Cross River State worldwide. Let's all come together to create the Cross River State of our dreams. Visit www.crossrivermove.com to sign up. Together we can.
Right. So on that note, Happy New Year, everyone. Wishing you all the best for 2022.
Thank you. It's all well done.